Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. Now we get into our big stories, and we're starting with the very first one. We're talking about Ghana at a crossroads. That's how the NDC and John Dramani Mahama couched their interaction yesterday. Like you heard him, he talks about the e-levy, he talks about economic mismanagement, he talks about the development of our country, among other things. And he even talks about the Black Stars and what their qualification means for us. But let me just take a quick look at some of what he said. As you can see on your screen, he started with talk about the e-levy. That the collection of the e-levy started yesterday, and already there are a litany. Well, yesterday being the 1st of May, May Day, and there is a litany of complaints about the implementation and all of that. We'll be getting into all the relevant issues with our guests this morning. Elikem Kotoko. He is a member of the NDC's communications team, and his counterpart, Kofi Ameya, who is also a member of the NPP's communications team. They join us for a discussion this morning, right here in the studio. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for making the time, and a happy Eid al-Fitr to both of you.
Eid al-Fitr.
Fitr.
Okay. Are you a Muslim?
No, I'm not.
Your ability to...
But I'm careful about pronunciation. It's important.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I don't know. Are they still giving out the rice and meat and?
So this is not the big one.
You want some?
This is
Not really.
This is the more. This is the smaller one.
Oh, okay.
The bigger one
Is the Sanla?
Is the second one.
Oh, okay.
Either
These are
other.
they take the chicken, not the.
But the other one, you get the cows and.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you want to supply some chicken?
Not really.
Oh.
I don't have the means to.
You don't have the means.
Oh, is the economy that bad?
I don't have the.
No, Elikem is taking you on.
No, I'll get.
Is it because you can't afford the chicken? Or
Why can't you afford it, my brother? Oh, Charlie,
Don't worry. Oh, what has Nanadu got to do?
All right, guys, let's hold it right there and get into the meat of the matter. I'll start with you.
With me?
Yes, with you.
Oh, okay.
You've followed what the former president said. I mean, it was quite a lot, lengthy, and we've put together quite a lot of what he says. But in a summary manner, what are your quick reflections on John Dramani Mahama when he talks about the economy, when he says they'll scrap the e-levy when they come to power, if they come to power, and the many other things he says? He talks about borrowing, for example. He says you have the West this, the West that, the West that in the Fourth Republic, and that what you've borrowed versus what you've been able to do are largely not commensurable. What's your quick reaction?
Very good morning to your good self and my brother here, Elikem, and to your cherished viewers as well. Yesterday, when I watched and listened, and later I read the statement of the former president, I sincerely and respectfully feel that he has outlived his usefulness in terms of ability.
He has outlived his usefulness?
Yes, to this country, especially when it comes to the management of the country and its economy. Clearly, he wanted to take advantage of the anxiety of the people, the frustration and the challenging moment that we are all going through as a result of the cascading effects of the global pandemic, COVID-19, and then the recently war between Russia and Ukraine. Unfortunately, when I was listening to him, I took myself off the political scene and wanted to listen to somebody who wants to become a leader of the country once again.
Right.
And as a young person, what will inspire me, even though I will never support his political party, even though I will never support him, but what will inspire me to be able to say, okay, God forbid, and I perish that thought, if MPP is not around, we will have a leader that will be able to steer this country fast forward than it currently is. And clearly, he was not able to give me that impression. He was not able to give me that hope. Because when you go into the nitty-gritties, the fine details of his statement, you will find a lot of hypocrisy in
like
that.
what?
For example, he poo-pooed the fact that what we are experiencing, COVID has no bearing on it. It's as a result of our mismanagement. That is
that what he said? He insinuated that we were doing certain things, that we're not inuring to the benefit of our economy. And of course, COVID-19 and the Ukraine-Russia crisis has only, impacted that further. In fact, if I'm to quote some of what he said, long before COVID, it was evident that the economy was being mismanaged. I cautioned against this mismanagement. By 2019, our deficit and debt figures had already reached distress levels. This is a fact which was recently corroborated by the World Bank through its country representative in Ghana. All of what he says here, you can talk about. It is true that he was cautioning about this before, we suffered COVID and the whole bit about Ukraine and Russia. And it is true what he says about the fact that it's been recently corroborated by the World Bank. I mean, that is out there.
The truth of the matter is that when we inherited the economy from him, we were doing a gross domestic product of 3.4%. We averagely were doing 7% yearly until COVID struck.
In 2014, we had our highest. We had done something over 8%. Would you talk about that as well?
You are talking
when
about
we have these
2011,
conversations, I want us to be very, not lean towards one end, but be very...
You are talking about 2011 when we did 14%. But you should ask yourself the question that you did 14% in 2011. What happened? Then 5 years down the line, you were doing 3.4%. And we came and we ballooned it, we doubled it. So we are talking about an economy that was doing relatively better than you were doing until COVID struck. But I'm saying that he is trying to create the impression that COVID has little to do with what we are going through. And I beg to differ. And I'm talking about the hypocrisy because when he went to Harvard, just recently, the 24th African Business Conference, Harvard Business School. This is what he said, the former president. The pandemic is estimated to have dragged about 55 million more people into poverty in Africa and exposed another 46 million more to the risk of hunger and malnutrition. Indeed, 70% of hunger in Africa, which had already been on the rise since 2014, is directly attributed to the pandemic. He went further to say, data from the Economic Commission of Africa, ECA, shows that the COVID-19 created the continent's worst recession in 50 years, with real GDP shrinking by an average of 3% in 2020. Before the pandemic, poverty reduction was already a major challenge.
And I followed this, and indeed, I noticed that members of your party took it in a certain context because they said, I even saw headlines in newspapers saying that Mahama had conceded or he had vindicated Dr. Bawumia. So I get exactly what the point is that you're making. But then what is the thrust of what you're saying? I
am seeing the hypocrisy. On one hand, he admitted that the pandemic, the cascading effect of the pandemic, had a very telling effect on the economy, not just Ghana's economy. And for just so you know, once we live in a global village, the fact that another country is suffering, you indirectly will be suffering as well. So he is talking about the fact that Africa will be suffering. And we have the trade agreement. That is one of the, for me, hypocrisy that he exhibited yesterday. Another one was the fact that he painted a picture as though the government is insensitive to the sufferings of the good people of this country, and it doesn't listen, it's in denial of the challenging moment in which we find ourselves in. And I beg to differ, because when you read paragraph 20 of the budget statement, that was read in November, it admits clearly that we are suffering, and the government and the president, that's what keeps him awake at night. In fact, when you go back to paragraph 4, the finance minister admits that indeed the COVID-19 has come to expose some of our weaknesses in the system. And indeed, when you go back to the vice president, when he was making that economic lecture, he indeed admitted that things are not in good shape. Prices of food products are rising. And when you read the State of the Nation's address by the president, he admits that we are in a challenging moment. So for President Mahama to come and tell us that, oh, the MPP government is in denial, they don't want to admit things are hard. No, that's not who we are. Unlike the MPP, when he was the president, and we went through economic challenges, to the extent that we had to go to the IMF for a bailout, for policy credibility, and what that means is that we can no longer manage the indicators of our economy. For that matter, we need a Bretton Woods institution to come in and help us. We haven't done that. Even that, what were some of the policies and programs that he put in place to ensure that the Ghanaian will be cushioned? Another point that he made that I find very, that was his 13 alternatives. And when you read the 13 alternatives, if I should take about 5 of them, I ask myself, is he really living in this country? Okay, especially when he says, oh, the government should, identify and redefine a new course for the country to chart on. I am sorry, Mr. President. We have already done that by introducing the GhanaAtACrossroads Care, COVID-19 Alleviation and Revitalization Enterprise Support. In that program,
the Ghana Cares Obatampa program is all-encompassing enough, because hold on. I felt that what he was saying, and sometimes this is where I fault or feel aggrieved when it comes to both the NDC and the MPP. I've forgotten who was mentioning recently that, I think it was Professor Mike Aaron Okwe, former Speaker of Parliament, that, for example, when it comes to national development, we ought to detach the political parties and maybe have something that is more forward-looking, regardless of which party. Some of these things that he is mentioning here, I feel you may have your own points to make, but if we're able to incorporate them into our national life, regardless of which party, would they hurt? Would they hurt?
Not at all.
So why must it look as though these 13 are irrelevant? They are not needed. And the Ghana Cares Obatampa program does not address some of the things that he talks about.
No, the things that he mentioned here. He's saying that we need a new course. I am saying that is double standard. That's hypocrisy, because you can critique what we already implemented and say, okay, it is not good enough. You have to do A, B, and C. But this is a case where he's telling us, you haven't done anything, so do something. And
is that what he's saying?
That's the implication that I got. That is the idea that I got from what he said. You are asking me to.
Is it possible for anybody? It's not possible even for the worst governments or regimes in the world, even military regimes, to do nothing. So sometimes when some of you come and say the accusation is, it's not about, it's not possible for anybody to not do anything.
That's the impression he created.
But just to wrap with you before I go to Elikem, because I also want to say, I just want to quick. No, we're taking it step by step, but I just wanted to run this by you. You're saying that he's being hypocritical and all of that, but look at the context. You referenced what he said at Harvard.
Okay.
In the same breath, he says that you are mismanaging things. But let's take the example of other countries, okay? Because you must look at this in context. COVID has hit every country in the world. The Russo-Ukrainian war, same. Other countries were performing better than others. But even in the midst of all of this, even when you look at our West African sub-region, when it comes to debt to GDP ratios, when it comes to economic performance, when it comes to businesses being impacted, when it comes to currency issues, we are not doing well. In fact, we currently have one of the highest debt to GDP ratios in the sub-region and even beyond. We have the worst performing currency on the continent of Africa. I could go on and on. So my question then to you very briefly is, all these countries are facing the dynamics, but we are performing much worse than others. When you look at fuel, let me just sneak in this bit. Sierra Leone. I have friends in Sierra Leone who tell me that within the last 4 years, the pricing windows have increased by about once every year, even in the midst of COVID-19, in the midst of what is happening in Russia and Ukraine. Here we are in Ghana. How much has fuel, gone up? In fact, fuel prices, petroleum and diesel, are set to go up again. So, in the midst of all of this,
first of all,
over to you.
First of all, when you are having this discussion and debate, you need to respectfully situate it in the right spectrum and context.
Which is what?
You have to look at what were the exact mitigating factors and policies each country took to ensure that it will contain the virus. Okay? Did we do exactly what the other countries did? You look at the nature of the economy. We are an import-driven economy. We import almost everything. And when you import almost everything and you have a global disruption in supply, definitely it's going to affect your economy. When you have about 80% of your economy being informal, and for 2 weeks you tell them not to go to work, it will affect your economy. When you have a situation where the tourism...
Your decision, right? We have people who are supposed to take decisions for the country. When you make the decision, you bear the consequences.
Exactly.
Right?
So we haven't run away from the fact that we are, feeling the brunt of what we implemented. And the president said it, that we know how to bring the economy back to life. What we don't know how to do is to bring people back to life. And so by saying that, he admitted that the economy will be dead at some point because of the things that we were doing. And clearly, yes, some of the indicators, the macroeconomic indicators, doesn't look so great. But we have made some progress. For example, we are now doing about 5.4% of GDP growth. That is far better than even when they were leaving office in 2016, when we didn't have a global pandemic. So the point really is this. And we in the MPP admit that we are going through challenges. The president admits that Ghanaians are suffering. The vice president admits. The finance minister admits. And they prefer solutions, and we've given directives and policies to ensure that at the end of the day, we will make progress. What I want to assure the good people of this country is that we have a president and a government that is extremely sensitive to the plight of the ordinary Ghanaian.
It's interesting you say this. I have to move on to Elikem, but you say in one breath you're saying they are sensitive, and you say they admit that Ghanaians are suffering. Do you remember Dr. Baumia when he was nurses are? Would you like to repeat? Students are suffering. SMSC suffering. Suffering. Suffering is not what you promised. And John Dramani Mahama says it in the bid that you're being hypocritical. What you promised and what you are delivering are not the same.
That's the challenge that I have. We are suffering as a result of a global pandemic.
Okay. All right. Let's hold it right there. Let me bring in Elikem Kotoko. You've listened for a while. I also want your take, first of all, your brief reflection on yesterday's address, Ghana at a Crossroads. How well do you relate to this? The points that were made by the former president, how topical were they for you? And then we'll get into some of the issues that Amael has looked at.
Brother. On that score, permit me the latitude to say good morning to one fine gentleman who made yesterday's program look stellar, and that is Stan Dube. I was listening to my brother, and I just found three things present here. Either the true definition of hypocrisy, ignorance, or insensitivity to the plight of the Ghanaian watching you and I today. That you could not tell us what exactly President Mahama said that contradicted anything he said in the past. You even went ahead to talk about how he made some speeches at Harvard. He is telling you that, yes, the pandemic has brought hardship. It has brought hardship because you have mismanaged. It has brought hardship because over 34 billion you have refused to account to the Ghanaian people. It has brought hardship because the president, but like a headless chicken, in the midst of this pandemic.
Please.
No.
Please. Elikem.
See, I am fully responsible.
No, hold on. Let me just say this. Ground rules on this show. Let's try to be as decorous as possible. And please, no insinuations. Don't cast aspersions at anybody.
The president, as insensitive as he was.
Would you like to withdraw that?
Yes, okay.
Headless chicken, no, not appropriate.
I've withdrawn that.
Right.
The president, in that insensitive manner, was globetrotting all over, even during the pandemic. Flying in those luxurious jets. How much did he bring us apart from debt? And then today you want to look Ghanaians in the face and say you are sensitive, you appreciate. And this is the height of their recklessness. A regime that is not ready to take responsibility for anything except shake it off to everybody. You want to blame Russia for the fuel prices? How much is the cedi to the dollar? That is the major reason why we are suffering. The cedi has become very porous. The cedi has become very important. If the cedi were about, let's say, 5 cedis to the dollar or 6 cedis to the dollar, how much do you think if you had converted the rate, it would have actually put a liter of petrol? So don't think that Ghanaians looking at you are that dumb that you can throw words about and say that, oh, we have even done better. Look, you are still even in the midst of this mess complaining and comparing yourself. Isn't it mediocrity at this point in time, considering the numerous promises you made to Ghanaians, to now be telling yourself here that you are comparing yourself to the one you called incompetent? Is the incompetence now the standard for you? That can be nothing else but shallowness. I'm sorry. That is just shallowness. And it's insensitivity towards the Ghanaian watching you. That you want to tell me today that an economy that you told us was very robust, you shut down for 2 weeks, and that has actually crumpled everything. Was Ghana the only country that actually shut down? And you rightly asked him, Sierra Leone and the other countries, did they not suffer the same pandemic? So what has brought us here? We have a regime that has done nothing but establish corruption as an institution at the seat of government. The greater pandemic we are faced with today is this regime headed by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as the economic management team, who has reduced himself to an economics management teacher. And it's no surprise that President Mahama yesterday gave a true definition of who he is. Somebody who has fallen from his ivory tower as a self-styled economic messiah, now reduced to a poster boy. I call him a senior presidential staffer at the presidency. That is what he is doing now.
He is the vice president.
The vice president has now become...
and head of the economic
management. You saw his last speech where within 2 hours he was sweating profusely as though he was engaged in...
Why, is sweating a crime now?
It is not a crime, but when the vice president has to be struggling to deliver speeches that he used to do freely without even sweating, then what changed? We should ask ourselves. The question is, what did President Mahama say yesterday that was not true? To any Ghanaian watching us, what did President Mahama say yesterday that wasn't true? So what exactly is it that President Mahama is hypocritical? Is it just by choice of use of words that you always think that you are smarter than the Ghanaian who listen or watch or who knows the hardship we are going through today? He was even telling himself that he could not even afford rice to come and give to his Muslim friends. That is how dire the situation has become. Because
I don't think technically that's what he said.
We are even talking for them because they are in government and suffering but cannot say it.
Right.
So we are becoming...
Let me just ask you though. I always find it interesting when these dynamics come up. When you look at the management of the economy, NDC through to NPP, you would realize that when it comes to debt to GDP, neither of you has been really good in terms of managing the economy. Our debt levels, of course, some are more than others. But I feel that when it comes to the management of the economy, you've all had your woes, your problems. We lived through doomsday for a while in this country. We saw the impact. So you also cannot paint a picture as though you were perfect, economically speaking. There's no such system. Or that you were so much better and that we are so much worse now. Is that what you're trying to say?
That is not what I'm trying to say at all. In the first place, even at the mention of doomsday, we all need to even appreciate the fact that it was a long inherited challenge because governments had come and not made any provision for our energy demands or our energy needs.
But that's why we voted government, and you had to take that.
So somebody had to buy the bullet. And that is why even today, when you hear people who are academics or who are experts, supposed experts within their own regime trying to say that we have excess power and all of this, you ask yourself where from this crap. In the first place, what's the energy penetration in Ghana? There are people who still don't even have electricity. And you are telling Ghanaians that we have excess power that we don't need. Have we achieved 100% penetration in Ghana with the energy sector? And so you ask yourself why these people think they are a special breed. And anytime they are pushed to the wall, then they now tell you, like my brother said himself, we need to put our discussion in a perspective, in a certain context. The reason why even if the National Security Minister tells the judges that there's perceived notion there that they are compromised or what have you, they will now come back and tell you and I again that he was taken out of context. Which school did they go to that the language that whenever they speak the same English, it is different for our interpretation and they have to come back again and do that kind of damage control? Let me tell you, like you said, President John Mahama never stood anywhere and actually said he was perfect. In fact, he always even admits his faults. He also always will tell you that, for instance, we are not against taxation, but we would not want to put up flowery words to make it look so pleasant to people as though we are the ones with the magic wand. We're the messiah, only to realize that you're actually the mess. So what is really, look, when you take this current regime, why has the president not openly even admitted that we are in the woods, but using words and they have to say that the fact that the president said this meant that, well, fine, we've agreed. But if it was something else again and we needed to interpret it, then they will tell us you've taken him out of context. And so I didn't want to respond to a lot of the things he said. President Mahama said that, for instance, what a time to introduce e-levy, like on May Day, to slap workers with that. And it is true. If all things being equal, is it even May Day you should be doing that? At least have an appreciation for wisdom to know that timing is even key in whatever you do.
Are you saying that was an unwise...
That was an unwise...
imprudent move?
That was an unwise decision to make. A very unwise one. It is why it is not surprising also that he mentioned that.
But the e-levy had been delayed since what? November, December last year.
Yes.
And your own party had sort of heckled the process in Parliament up to the point. I mean, it had to happen at some point, right?
At some point, you could still say you introduce it a day or 2 or 3 or in the middle of May. Don't forget, that is why the president has put himself out as somebody who is not only irresponsible, but very insensitive. One of my reasons is this. Even in the last election, where he was the greatest beneficiary of the outcome of the results, 8 citizens died out of that. Has he been able to utter a word That is the pride and the arrogance of a leader that we have found today. Has he been able to find reason to just sit down and say, fellow Ghanaians, in the last elections, we lost 8 lives. That should not be. As a human rights activist, I detest that and will do everything to ensure that we bring those who did that. No, he has not even heard us say that.
Okay. Elikem, let's look at a crucial point,
Yes.
and I want to put it bluntly to you, even as we get into the e-levy. So is the NDC saying,
Yes.
and we have history, that is why I'm asking this question, is the NDC saying that should you, if
Yes.
conditional,
Yes.
you assume the reins of government in 2025,
Yes.
we'll say bye-bye to the e-levy yamutu. Is that what you are saying? Because in the same country, like I was mentioning in the news review,
Yes.
VAT, lower VAT, kumi preko, siemi preko, viemi preko. And then we saw a government come into power and then increase it.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Is that your final answer for 3 points, that you take away the e-levy?
Thank you for that. Touch wood. See, it is one of the reasons why the NDC and the minority in parliament would resist any attempt to want to collateralize the e-levy. Because if we allow them to collateralize, then it becomes difficult for you to even want to take it off. But we will do everything to resist that. Virtually everything has been collateralized. I mean, talk about the ESLA, talk about even Get Fund. And they have already given all indications that the 6 billion that they were expecting, which has actually shot down to 4.5, and by the time the year ends, will maybe shoot down to probably 2 or 2.5 billion, is aimed at using that to collateralize so that they can now go in for more. This is a regime that is only interested in borrowing. And President Mahama was actually spot on. He's not the only first person to have said that. If you recall, our General Secretary General Johnson Asiedu John also made saying that, look, we would make sure that we take it out, because that is untold hardship being brought onto the people. And it is the reason for which we would ensure.
Untold hardship that is going to bring some, now 45 billion into government's kitty. 45 billion that should you come into government, you would also need.
Good. Auditor General made us know that this regime has even invested close to 12.4 billion, which is twice the amount that they are actually requesting for through e-levy. As we speak, the president looks on. The finance minister is very mute over a decision by a road minister to call for cessation of collection of road tolls. What that means is that even if vehicles from other countries, from Cote d'Ivoire, from Burkina Faso, Niger, Togo, are driving on our roads, they don't pay a dime for the destruction they are causing to our roads. But the president comes to you and I and say, pay road levy, pay e-levy, so I'll use that to go and fix the road. What kind of insanity is this? That is just what it is. Ask yourself, does it make sense to even a KG people watching the road minister, the finance minister, and the president accepting that because he is a family relation to the president, nobody is able to talk about it. So he has taken a unilateral decision to call for cessation of collection of road tolls. As we speak, we are losing close to 8 million every month. That is 80 million every year. So there are a lot of ways that you can find avenues to rake in more. When you are investing in corruption, what do you expect? It has become a pandemic rather than even a COVID-19.
Point made. Kofi?
Sir.
I'll start from where, you can call me Ben. I'll start from where he left off, Elikem left off. And indeed, some of us have struggled to contemplate, especially in our economic situation, why you're losing over 200,000 cedis a day because you've taken away the road tolls. And we talk about the e-levy. The NDC, John Dramani Mahama says, and I'm quoting him here, we in the NDC do not oppose taxation as a principle. We will not be pretentious and couch fanciful slogans to condemn the principle of taxation like the MPP did in the past. We are, however, implacably opposed to distortionary and burdensome taxes like the e-levy that only force Ghanaians to endure more suffering. I'll tell you this, as far as our surveys here are concerned and in our interactions with people, they have evinced that people could have done without the e-levy. Okay. In some polls we have conducted, or some engagements in the Ashanti region, 9 out of 10 people have said, we don't want the e-levy. But we have it today, okay? I'll reference what Vice President Bawumia said in the past when he was asked about electronic taxation. He said, never that. It's not something that we should look at. Today we find ourselves there. Can you disagree with former President Mahama on this point when he says that he is not against taxation as a principle, but where we find ourselves, we should never have been here.
Yeah, it's true, because of a lot of factors that had come into play and still continue to be in play. In fact, I have some statements, and a video for that matter, where the former president was admitting that when you have outliers, especially from other countries, it can have a telling effect on your economy. He made that statement in 2012. He admitted same 2014, and even in 2016, his State of the Nations address, he admitted that because of the economies that were not so good in China, it has its effect on the Ghana economy. So when you have these situations where the whole world is struggling to find its feet, there's a need for you to do something differently and audaciously. If we have other means to raise revenue, trust me, we would have done it. But at this point, this is what we had to do to ensure that at the end of the day, we don't continue go borrowing. Did you get it? It's very unfortunate tax, but it is extremely needed and necessary, because we needed to augment certain developmental projects that are ongoing. Also to ensure that at the end of the day, it will be able to provide more jobs for the youth. We are complaining about unemployment among the youth, and we have an agenda to ensure that this money will go into addressing the youth unemployment. But specifically on the issue of the former president making that declaration, on what locus did he make that statement? Why did he make that statement? It's not in his place to make that statement.
Why not?
Who is he in the NDC now? Why would he declare such a bold thing, like when the next NDC government? Who is he now? I'm asking, who is he now to make that statement? I don't think it was in his place to make that statement.
He is a former president. He is the former flag bearer of the party in the immediate past election.
So why would you say the next NDC government? Well, no.
Hold on. Just hold on. I'm just saying that at this point we could have a brief interjection. I don't want to do it because I don't know what they are thinking. But why do you think
President Mahama is a former president and consults with the Council of Elders and the NDC at large, and that is a decision by the NDC which has been communicated to you.
But if
that is just the truth.
All right, thank you.
But if the National Council makes a decision, again, I am asking the question: who is the mouthpiece of the NDC?
You had the general.
Hold on. Again, that's not the point. But I am also making the point that the NDC and John Dramani Mahama, God forbid, and I perish the thought, becomes the president, wouldn't have what it means to repeal this tax.
They wouldn't have what it takes to repeal the tax.
No, they don't even have the credibility. I am daring you. Mention just one.
I thought you would say they wouldn't have the numbers, assuming they did in Parliament.
They can't even do it.
They can't do it.
They don't even have the credibility to do it. I am challenging Elikem and maybe you to name just one tax. Just one tax.
Right.
The NDC abolished when they came to government. Just one of them. Abolished. I'm not talking about reduction or reviewing it or reforming it. Abolished completely. But I can mention 15 taxes we either abolished or reduced in this country.
But Kofi, it's interesting you make the point. No. I am interjecting. You abolished some of them. Some of those taxes you called nuisance taxes.
True.
And then you also introduced a raft of others. What would you call that?
No, I am making a specific statement.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the credibility of a political party and an individual. If it had taken the NPP to say, when we come to government, we will repeal or abolish this tax, then you can go home and sleep. But with the NDC, you cannot, because they don't have it. They have never done it before. We have done it before. I am saying that you cannot come to government and see 7 billion revenue every year and tell me you repeal it. First of all, does it even have the wherewithal to navigate us through our challenges?
But speaking of the locus that you're talking about, the NDC never made promises about abolishing taxes. You did. They didn't.
See,
So we can simply say that you honored your promise, though you hit us with other taxes.
I am saying that they haven't even done it, whether they are promised or not.
So now that there is a promise, which they have not made in the past, now that there is a promise, there is no justification for you to say they've been dishonest because they've never made that promise to Ghanaians.
We are talking about e-levy because of three factors that have impacted the economy so badly. And out of these three factors, two of the major were as a result of the mess we inherited from the NDC. And yesterday, I was glad that the former president admitted that indeed we created that mess. When you go to the financial sector bailout excuse that he said we gave, he said it was the NDC government that conducted the asset quality review which determined that the banks in question were in distress. So he clearly admitted.
But that has never been in question. No, when you make a point, I have to okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So here, he admits that the 25 billion, which could have been used for some other things, okay, could have been avoided if he had managed the banking sector or the financial sector well.
So the point I was trying to make was that they say that we didn't even need to spend the 25 billion, which has been ballooning from 9 billion to this billion to 17 to 20 to 21 to 24 and all of that. He says, yes, I agree with you. We've spent this amount of money, but we didn't have to go there. That was not going to be our approach in dealing with the problems that I agree the banks had. That is what he's saying.
But I find that's part of the hypocrisy. First of all, indeed, he built some of the banks out. He did. And the money he gave to you should go and read the asset quality review. And the money he gave to the banks ended up spending the money. So that solution that he was preferring or he preferred then did not even work. To the extent that when you read paragraph, page 20 of the last State of the Nation's address by himself, he admitted that the policy that we have implemented, they are not working. That is why we have to do something different and dramatic and drastic. And of course, he was talking about the fact that some people will lose their jobs and some, people locally, they have lost their businesses and all of that. But how about the 1.2 million Ghanaians? How about the 4.5 million depositors who could have lost their money as a result of this incompetence? So clearly for me, again, I want to make the point that the NDC clearly is not the alternative. Yesterday, listening to him and the 13 points that he raised, and all the 13 points have been addressed by the NPP administration, and we are making steady progress. I know we are in challenging moments. I know things are tough. I know Ghanaians are angry. I know they are anxious. We understand that. I used to buy cocoa for 1 cedi with sugar. Now I have to buy it for 1 cedi 50 pesos. I will buy the kose and it used to be that big. Now it has shrunk. They are saying I used to fill my tank with such amount of money. Now I'm buying it more. Things are hard. We are in difficult situation. But I'm making the humble appeal that it would take the new patriotic party to be able to take us through these processes and to ensure that we go back to our glorious days.
All right.
The NDC
quick questions before I move on to Elikem. I know I think the thrust of what you're saying is made, but I just want to find out from you. You walk the corridors of power, and as a communications member, you hear things. If things become better for our country economically, though when you look at the global picture, the projections by the IMF and the World Bank, I mean, it's even projected now that our debt to GDP is around 84.something%, that it will get to about 88% moving on to 2024, 2025, before it recedes to about 87%. So, and people have told us, watchers of the economy, that next year could be even worse than this year. So let's put all of that aside. If things were to become better, much better economically speaking, let's say the cedi appreciates against foreign currencies and all of that, would the NPP consider doing away with the e-levy?
I don't think I have the authority to.
That's why I was asking. I mean, you walk the corridors of power.
You see,
but is this something you would want to see if things were to become that much better?
No.
You wouldn't want to see the e-levy taken off?
I think that we are demanding more as a people, and rightly so. And when we are demanding for more, it will require money to do that. So if the money will be used for its intended purpose, why not? We should go ahead and continue to take taxes from the e-levy to ensure that we truly develop this country, that we create more jobs for the youth and create more opportunities for every Ghanaian, and to make sure the economy is on stable grounds, and to see more. When I go through my area where I live, I see a lot of road infrastructure, and it makes me happy. Hitherto, a year or two ago, it was horrible. I'm talking about the Ashalebotwe Manjo area there, and now it's being, developed. And I think many more are being done in the rural areas, and they are happy about it. We can only be happy when we contribute our quota to the national development and to the kitty. And I believe that as long as we use the money for its intended purpose, it should remain in.
Very quick one. Elikem, I'll come to you. Just bear with me. I just have to sneak in this bit. So, when it comes to COVID-19 spending, John Dramani Mahama has time and again, called for more accountability. The claim is that we've accrued some $34 billion when you look at all the sources, from the IMF to the World Bank to this to that, and even locally generated funds. Why is the MPP so averse to coming out and saying, and I admit, in some instances you have said that we've expended this, expended that, and PPE and all of that, but why are you so averse to coming out with a full-scale audit? This is where all the COVID-19 money, the 33 billion plus, has gone into. Why is that such a problem?
I think it's a populist statement and a populist question and a rhetoric. We have institutions in this country that are mandated to do auditing in such.
Why are they not? I mean, are you going to refer to the Auditor Generals and all of that? I mean, as a government, as an administration, you are accountable to the people. You must be transparent.
We are being accountable. We have the Public Account Committee that is chaired by the opposition. We have the Auditor General that is independent. We have other institutions.
If you tell me, for example, the 50-something million that you spend feeding people in COVID-19, what is the breakdown? How do I know what that went into? I mean, there are so many things, PPE and all of that. Which institution, who got what?
When you read a budget, the appendices, all these expenditures are there. Read the appendices.
All right.
Unless you have a problem with the appendices,
all right,
they are all there.
If that is your final answer, let me move on to it.
I want to say two things first. You see, President Mahama said it, that we are not against taxation. And I was just surprised listening to my brother that we should mention one tax that we abolished. Is it mandatory that you abolish tax?
I'm talking about your credibility.
No, is it mandatory? I'm sorry, but what kind of basic economics is this? That when a government is coming, you must promise the people that I abolish tax. Is that what went into the thinking? Is that what Dr. Baumia taught
We're
you
even
guys?
taxing condoms.
Granted, it is true.
Granted, it's true.
I am saying, granted, it is true. We didn't tell the people we won't do this. So where from this? I'm sorry, but President Mahama said, and I quote, "I do not claim perfection. I am human, but I will not engage in empty promises, sloganeering, convenient lies, and grand deception to win power. I will always speak the truth." And he has stayed true to that.
Really?
He has stayed true to that. That he doesn't think that he must go and be speaking some funny accent to look like I am the one with the loudest voice and I can be heard. You were talking about the financial sector cleanup and all that. Look at what happened. Now you were able to say that President Mahama is admitting that he caused the mess. Should I now also tell you that, okay, so you take things out of a certain context, and that's why I always ask, which special school did you go that we did not attend? That gives you, which is the reason why when even one says we'll review, to the MPP it means cancellation. But when they say review, it means something else. Look, you look at President Mahama made it clear that looking at the financial sector cleanup, there was job that ought to have been done. And the work that ought to be done was to lend some support to the financial services or the sector. What did you actually do? You said you are coming to clean up. You have cleaned up, and today what are we seeing? What is the status of the financial sector till date? Then they will tell you, oh, now interest rates or banking loans. Who is even going to the bank to take loans in today anyways? Where is the money? The money exists in the books. It doesn't exist in cash. So stop massaging figures and quoting things. When the IMF, and you bastardizing the IMF, when they gave you the 1 billion, why didn't you say no to them? The World Bank indicated even on their website, times back, that you failed to account for monies that were given to you. Is that not embarrassing enough? And what else is there again that is called credibility, that this regime must actually be talking of that fiber? You have none. And you think that at all times you are blaming everybody. He sat here close to 1 hour. He has not been able to own up that we took this decision that was wrong. And I was surprised to hear here as a youth to say that even when things get better, e-levy should remain. So you see, then why again were you saying that we should mention one tax that we decided we will abolish? So why were you abolishing some anyways? But you are so hypocritical enough to say that even when things get better, e-levy should still remain. Do you have any moral sensitivity towards the people watching you who are going through hardship for actually being double taxed for their own money they have put in their electronic wallet? If they want to even compromise on the fact that you have mismanaged, just as the World Bank has indicated, that high debt and fiscal indiscipline is what has brought us here, why would you actually even say that to the people? I see, it is one good thing being able to speak well and say all manner of nice things. It is what has landed us where we are. Because President Mahama will not allow himself to only be polished as the best product and all of that. He's always said that he doesn't claim perfection. But you want President Nana to be polished and branded so well. You see, you can try to sell ice even to the Eskimo. But in the end, we'll see what that product will be like. Look, everybody is now saying it. Even you have former judges, almost every week somebody comes out to say President Nana is a disaster. He has failed. He has made promises. And Ghanaians have always asked you these questions. You promised one district, one factory with a graph showing where Adenta will have their factory, showing where Medina will have their factory. Today we ask you, and you point to Ghana Rubber Estates Limited that was established in 1985, that because you gave them support, it means that it's now part of one district, one factory. You promised them 1 million per constituency. You promised them one village, one dam. Their promises were just flowery and were flowing. Today, as you are stuck, you are blaming everything irresponsibly on Russia, Ukraine, on COVID-19, as though Ghana was the only country that suffered the pandemic. The greater pandemic we are suffering today is the regime that has established corruption as a thriving enterprise in the seat of government, which is worrying. Tell us who the president has prosecuted so far over matters that relate to corruption. We only hear they are starting then the Ghana way, a very foolish case. Then it goes. Then another
the
issue.
National Communication Authority, the board members and the former CEO, 3 of them that were in prison.
And you are proud that of all the corruption.
You just said who?
Yes.
And I'm giving
because I want to bring you out to answer me, and let me tell you. And you are so proud to say that of all the numerous scandals and the issues that surround this government.
Done anything.
So you are proud that that is what you have done.
No, I'm just correcting you.
To the extent that
next time,
that the presidency has sunk so low that the presidency has sunk so low that you even have a special prosecutor tell you that he's the mother serpent of corruption. Never in the history of any country that the presidency or the president is described in such manner. It's disgusting. Let us face
the same person your party described as uncontrollable.
So do you now want to listen to us?
Right.
I will tolerate that.
Right. Just hold for me. We want to, also look at the perspectives from you, the viewers, and what you've been sharing with us on social media and beyond. Should time suffice, we would also activate the phone lines on this matter. But Bernice Abubedu Lanza is here in the studio as well. Hi, Bernice.
Hi.
There you are.
Hi. Yes,
all right. So what are people saying on this matter?
A lot of comments on this, and let me just scroll down so you see what people are commenting. And this is the story on myjoyonline.com. Next NDC government will repeal e-levy act, and that's what you are just discussing with your guests. David says no government will cancel or repeal completely the sources of revenue for a nation. E-levy is no exception of revenue for Ghana and politicians. Stephen says, well, please give us a break here, but he doesn't use those exact words. We were in this country when you were taxing condoms, he says. Dominic Eduse says, but you people once upon a time tax cutlasses and condoms, or you still think Ghanaians have short memory? Agbenyaga says, Abugri, he's got so many better things to offer than an industry of taxing poor people's pockets, and says this is a clear indication that he's got nothing better to offer Ghanaians. So that response was to Abugri. Eric Amankwa says the way this man is craving for power, where he claims with lies, I fear it will be worse in Ghana. George Ahim says, what about one-time premium of health insurance you promised us in 2008? What do you take us for, Mr. Short Memory, he says. And Kweku Agboche says, Ghanaians do not have short memories. Okay, so if you get onto our Facebook page, we have posted short clips of former President Mahama's speech, and this particular one is on education, where he talks about basic schools not having enough textbooks. But we have more on the e-levy. Let me just quickly scroll down. Oops, sorry. And we'll get more on that. Okay.
So that's even an interesting bit that you just scrolled by, where he talks about the economy or the country being on the verge of bankruptcy. But I guess those are some of the other videos that we have on the platform. You can check out all of them on Facebook.
Okay, so this particular one has 183 comments still on the e-levy, and people are telling us what they think of former President Mahama's declaration that the next NDC government, if given the opportunity, will repeal the e-levy. It says, "Let no Ghanaian be fooled." This is Abu Lansani by this PR gimmick. Okay, he's making political talk just to garner votes. We've seen several of these from the NDCs, and no Ghanaian should be deceived. There are 9 replies to that. Let me just quickly take that. Okay. Your work is hard. Why do you want to sympathize, or who do you want to sympathize with you? If all economies are suffering shocks, are their citizens spared? Why should taxing people in economic turmoil amidst high inflation, high fuel prices, high cost? So he goes on to list a couple of things people are suffering. Nicholas Bwedi says, when nakedness promises to give you clothes, ask his name. I think the question we should be asking should be, what happened to the communication service tax? Okay, so he lists a number of tax, and he's asking if the NDC repealed those or rather increased. And he says, why did JM oversee the introduction of 26 killer nuisance taxes, including condom tax, tax on cutlasses, kaya tax, 17.5% tax on banking transactions, etc., which Nando came to either repeal or drastically reduce? Was JM being insensitive by then when those nuisance taxes were introduced, even in the dark days of Doomsaw? He says, credibility matters, you know. Alexis Doyen says, sounds sweet to the ear that wants to hear it. If by chance this tax rakes in just 2 billion per in a year, it would be insane to scrap it for a broke economy. All the same, when you hear party folk soldiers start saying President Mahama's words have been taken out of context, just know that you've been scammed and there will be no scrapping. Cassius Man says, what didn't they say about the national health insurance? They promised us one-time registration, but when we voted for them, did they honor that promise? What do they, especially their man who calls himself JDM, take Ghanaians for? We cannot be deceived by JDM again. Let me ask, he once said politics is about mixing truth with lies to get votes from the electorate. So this one, he is saying, where can I place it, under lies or truth? Okay, and let me just do this last one. Suleiman says, the only party that speaks the truth, even if it will affect them, Ghanaians will testify before 2016 elections. JDM spoke the bitter truth concerning free education, Alawa and scam NAPCO before 2020 elections. So, Benjamin, those are a couple of views on our Facebook page. 183 of them, actually. We definitely cannot read them all. But these are just a few of what you've been sharing with us about the former president's statement about the e-levy. So we'll bring you more comments. Just go back to Benjamin to wrap it up with his guests.
All right, so I'll be doing that right here in the studio. And of course, after 9 o'clock, we'll be taking more of your comments on this. And the second bit, we'll be looking at COVID-19 and why those in the Bono East do not want to take the vaccines. But the live feed, I'm going to take some of just 2 or 3 of the comments that are there. And this one says, the headquarters of the COVID and the Ukraine war is in Ghana. You're being sarcastic. You're being sarcastic. This one says, and there are some interesting ones I saw. I just want to take a look at them. Someone was talking about the 17 taxes that were taken off or abolished. So the person was basically saying, and I just want to get the exact, yes, Chibi Calvin James says, the 17 taxes that were abolished were worse than the e-levy. We were paying 17% on bank transactions, make we think. So the person is saying the MPP did well by abolishing all of those taxes. But let's conclude this conversation, gentlemen. I want us to take a bit of a look at what President Mahama and the NDC propose in those 13 points at the end of this entire presentation. He says those directly responsible for the economic crisis must bear responsibility, and it is inconceivable that the Minister of Finance remains at post. So point 1. It goes without saying that the economic management team has failed, and then he goes on to talk about, and I'm just paraphrasing because they are lengthy, I can't take all of them. He says, having supervised the worst public debt buildup, the worst budget deficit, the worst debt to GDP ratio, the worst credit ratings and downgrades, the worst performing currency in the world, the worst crisis of confidence in our economy, the highest fuel prices ever rising in inflation and unprecedented hardship. It goes on. And that's why the economic management team, or the EMT, must step in. He says the president must, as a matter of urgency, reshuffle his cabinet. He says there must be a clear and measurable reduction in government expenditure. And we always hear about the number of ministers we have and how we could reduce them. In other points, he says government must limit borrowing significantly. He says government must also take immediate steps to restore credibility to the management of the economy. And just to wrap, he also says that it is time for us to change the structure of our economy by allowing Ghanaians to achieve the popular General Ignatius Kutu Echampo mantra of capturing the commanding heights of our economy. And the final point, we must leverage our comparative advantage in agriculture by investing in agribusiness to complete the agriculture value chain in respect of marketing and processing of our agricultural products. I want you gentlemen, in some 2 minutes maximum, or a minute and a half, encapsulate your ideas into how you genuinely feel about these 13 points, relevant or otherwise. I'll start with you.
The 13 point, I started my...
Yeah, you did. You made mention of them at the start.
And I think in summary, what he's proposing, they've been done already, and we continue to do it, except that it will take some time to kick in. He talks about the agribusiness. That is why we introduced the one district, one factory, to ensure that at the end of the day, we have factories in Ghana that will take advantage of the raw materials produced by our farmers. He was trying to poo-poo it. I have a list here, you don't have time. I have about over 100 factories that are operational. Do you get it? And again, the point about making sure we reduce...
Let me ask you an interesting question. Can you name five? No. I'll give you... Can you name 5 of those factories without looking on your phone? Any 5 factories that, off the top of your head, you can say, I know where these factories are?
When you go to Central Region, just when you are going, you have a gas cylinder factory right there. And then you have Casa de Europa.
You say just when you're going where?
To
where
Western
exactly?
Region, I think when you pass...
Central or Western?
Central. When you pass Winneba. And around that same place, we have the Jetro, some juice factory also there. That's 2. We have the Akunfi juice factory. I'm talking about just Central Region. And then when you go to Pram Pram in the Eastern Region, we have B5, which have been revamped.
Wait, Pram Pram.
Yeah, Pram Pram.
Okay.
Pram Pram.
But B5 has always been with us. I've worked in the Pram Pram enclave.
I know B5. My brother works there.
Right.
He's been working there since 2015.
Right.
But you see, the one district...
So what exactly have you done with B5?
Hold on. We are talking about one district, one factory as a policy.
Right.
And this is what the policy means. We will help establish factories with the private sector. Then when we came to government, we went to Parliament and told Parliament there are certain companies that need revival and need support. So when we talk of the one district, one factory, that's exactly what it means. So again, when you talk about a reduction in government expenditure, we have done so. We reduced government expenditure by 30%, another additional by 10%. The finance minister came to announce some of the spending reduction that will occur. Then the last point I would want to make, and I want to stress, this whole political ecosystem is about credibility.
Right.
Did you read what your viewers were saying? They don't have belief and trust in the former president to repeal the e-levy. And when I said that they don't have what it takes to cancel or repeal or abolish any tax, he said, oh, but we have never promised to reduce or abolish any tax. For that matter, you can come here and at least trying to attack me. But in 2008, when we introduced the communication service tax to ensure that we will use it to pay the national youth employment people, John Dramani Mahama, then a member of parliament, said, no, you are taxing them too much. It was not needed. We were abolishing when we come to power. He was a vice president. He never did it. Then in 2013, he introduced the communication service tax amendment bill, which increased it to about 6%. So, Elikem, this is the fact.
All right. Before Elikem comes in, Nyaglo Patrick says, Ben, the 17 taxes mentioned by the MPP are not same as the e-levy because they were not directly touching the poor Ghanaian. These taxes were insignificant to the plight of Ghanaians. Anyway, you have your 2.5 minutes because I gave him a
President
bit of,
Mahama in his submission made it clear that there will be the need for us to consider as a country a 24-hour 3-shift system that would make the economy be running around
8 hours each.
8 hours each, 24/7. That's very beautiful. That is what we need because we need to expand to create space that can soak in the numerous teeming youth that remain unemployed out there. He also talked about, look, the need that Dr. Bawumia has exhausted his usefulness. He has just been reduced to a poster boy there. It's embarrassing that he's not respected in the government from the look of things. If you listen
I love him. I love him.
You are everybody, even the wife loves him. So please, you can't love him.
He's a wonderful gentleman.
So don't make it look like you love him more than the wife. And she made us believe that and she made us even believe that her husband is the economic whiz kid. Until date, she will probably believe in that myopia. So that's not surprising. Now, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been a disaster. He has failed and more projects himself as an economics management teacher than economics management team head. And there's a need for him to actually eat the humble pie. The likes of Ken Ofori-Atta, who are only aiming at promoting their personal businesses, for which reason they know that they will be beneficiaries out of every business transaction that they encounter on behalf of government, will continue borrowing because he wants to be a greater beneficiary to that. Then President Mahama talk of reshuffle. That seems to be a word that President Nana has never heard before, and probably because he has no other person to turn to. If you are youth and looking at these old folks who are underperforming, and they don't find you worthy to be one of those who even can understudy them and be able to actually take up positions, you should be scared for your life because it is you and I, our future, that they are mortgaging without your involvement. And you are proud that you are continually borrowing us into debt this way, and this is how you actually bring the economy back to life and not bring lives to human beings to life. Well, that is just part of the president's way of copying or plagiarizing speeches that he eventually will not even admit to. Look, in a nutshell, I have always asked, tell me what President Mahama said yesterday. That is not the truth. That is not the fact. That is not worthy of mention that he actually presented a case of a statesman who has Ghana at heart.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I am tempted to say in the blue corner and in the red corner, but we're not in a boxing ring. We're joined by Elikem Kotoko. Do you support Kotoko? You need to change it.
I enjoy watching good football.
You ought to come aboard and support Krobia Kumasi Asante Kotoko.
Charlie, why you to
Okay.
What be your wahala?
I can't support the say make it can support Kotoko.
We support Kotoko.
You guys should come and buy me. So let me hear the
But we beat you the last time.
Let me
come do
So you say, let me hear that.
We'll do this when we
then
take
I
a
know
break.
how much you guys
We'll
are
do this
bidding
properly
for
when
me.
we take a break.
Who knows? I'll be the magic one that will cause the change. So
Elikem Kotoko is a member of the NDC's communications team. Kofi Amayao is a member of the MPP's communications team. Do stay with us because up next we're talking about the Bono East region and why people are simply refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccines. What's the situation there? We'll tell you. Bernice Abubeidu Lanza will be on that beat. And later, after 9 o'clock, she'll be back as we look at some of your social media comments and activate the phone lines to take your calls. Do stay. We'll be right back.